Hello, folks. Yesterday I released a video on 1979 Revolution and had a really messed up audio session, so my audio was blended in with the game audio very poorly. So I remastered the commentary from yesterday into a corrected audio version that should be fixed now. So I hope you enjoy. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm going to be taking a look at a new game. It's called 1979 Revolution Black Friday. And in this game, you take a look at the Iranian Revolution in the late 1970s against the Shah, who was the ruler of Iran, and also the subsequent rise to power of the Ayatollah Khomeini, who instituted Islamic rule in Iran and changed Iran from being a close ally of the United States to becoming the Islamic state that it is today, and leading it on toward the anti-American path. Now, the game is very different than most games I look at. This is actually kind of more in the Telltale series of games. It's not made by Telltale or anything like that. I actually think it's made by an Iranian who went through the revolution. I could be wrong there. But the game is a storyboard kind of game. It's a dynamic game where your choices affect outcomes, but it is very story-driven. It's not very interactive, so you'll get different decisions that'll pop up, and a lot of times you're choosing between different text responses or text bases, but you're not, running around the map so much. There's a little bit of interaction with the map, but for the most part, you'll get dialogue choices, and you can kind of survey the map and learn more, history around the Iranian Revolution. So in that sense, it's very different than a lot of our games. It's interactive in the sense that your choices impact results, but it's not interactive in the sense that you're not running around shooting and or deciding where units go or anything like that. So far, I played the game for about an hour, and you're kind of looking at the beginning of I started a new series, so you could or a new campaign, so you could see what the game looks like. But so far, the game doesn't seem to be pushing too much of an agenda on me. It's kind of hard to tell at this point. A game like this, where Iran is a country that the United States has a lot of, should we say, tense relations with, is always subject to, you kind of have to wonder, okay, what's the game maker thinking in this game? Are they trying to push an anti-America agenda? Are they trying to push a anti-Iran agenda? What's the agenda here? So far, and it's early, but so far to me it seems like the game is pretty balanced. I could come back and revisit that later once I've completed the game. But it seems pretty balanced. It seems kind of on the moderate Iranian side where, it's pointing out all these horrors that the Shah and his forces committed against the Iranian people, which is certainly true. Just a brief, really, really brief history of Iran. Basically, in the 1970s, Iran was ruled by someone known as the Shah. The Shah, I believe, in Iranian or in Farsi or Persian just means the king. But the Shah was the ruler of Iran, and his actual name was Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, and I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation, so I'm sorry about that. But he actually came to power in Iran in the 1940s during World War II. When the Allied powers invaded Iran to secure the Soviet Union's southern border and also Iran's oil resources. He ended up rising to power in 1941. He ended up staying in power until 1979, and his reign in Iran was really known for kind of progressive corruption. So, he came to power in 1941. By 1979, as this game points out, Iran had the largest gap between the rich and the poor. It was a highly corrupt, militaristic state that was actually pretty close to the United States, and that's one of the reasons that the revolution against him took on such an anti-American flavor. A lot of people wonder, well, where did the anti-Americanism between Iran and the United States begin? And a lot of it is because the United States strongly supported the Shah, so much so that Iran was the only country that the United States sold F-14 Tomcats to. The United States also sold F-4 Phantoms to Iran. I believe M48 or M60 tanks were sold to Iran. The United States heavily supported the Kingdom of Iran at the time under the Shah. And he was a very brutal dictator for a long period of his reign. It became worse as his reign progressed because as unrest in Iran grew, because there was a growing, extremely rich, sort of corrupt elite versus an impoverished middle to lower classes. He ended up needing to become more and more extreme to maintain power. And there was actually some discord between the United States and Iran that developed where, President Carter in power at the time was trying to make Iran more pro-civil rights, so he was trying to hold some things over the Shah, and, the Shah sort of felt handicapped where it was sort of like, okay, do I kind of loosen the reins and risk losing power, or do I keep things tight but risk losing, favor with the United States? So there was a lot of political back and forth there, and I'm not going to go too much into that because I'm hardly an expert on the Iranian Revolution. But this game is really interesting so far, and it kind of portrays what it's like to be... I think your main character is kind of like a journalist. He's taking pictures of everything, so he's kind of like a journalist from Iran who was in Germany, comes back to Iran, and during the revolution. But at some point, he kind of... I don't know if he loses his way or he realizes that the revolution is going down a path he can't support and ends up opposing the revolution. At least that's what it seems like at the start of the game, where you're trying to take photos and get them out to the West. The game takes place after the American hostages are taken at the embassy, so it's hard for me to make a real verdict on the game because I haven't completed it yet, but I did want to have sort of a first look or a first impression. I thought it was worth talking about because it's a really interesting game so far. It's really well put together. I want to say it's an indie game. I haven't seen anything made by this studio yet. The actual producer of the game is... let me double check that. The actual producer of the game happens to be... someone I haven't heard of before. They're called Ink Stories, and this looks like the only game that they've made so far. It's only $12 right now, or $11.20 right now, so I think it's worth a pickup. It's got about 19 chapters. So far I've gotten through about 8 of them in about 40 minutes, so my guess is it's around a 2-hour game, which isn't a ton of time, but again, for the price of $12, it seems pretty interesting. I also think the game is interesting because we don't see enough games here in the United States or in the West that portray non-European or non-American perspectives. And again, I believe, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this game was actually created by an Iranian developer who had, gone through the revolution. And I think we can all agree for the most part that Iran went down the wrong path in becoming an extremist Islamic state. But looking at what the revolution was like from the ground is really fascinating, because I think, and I hate to talk too specific about the revolution because I'm hardly an expert on the matter, but it seems to me that the Iranian Revolution was similar to the Russian Revolution in that when things first came to a head and the Shah was first overthrown, there were more moderates that were kind of in power, or at least there were moderate forces that were hoping that Iran could, maybe become more of a democracy, maybe institute some Islamic laws, but not become a hardline theocracy. There were certainly multiple camps within the revolution as it occurred. Just like during the Soviet Revolution, when the Russian Revolution occurred, there was actually a moderate government put in place. I don't think Iran had that, but there was actually a moderate government put in place in Russia during the revolution of the Soviets, and that was overthrown shortly thereafter, and the Bolsheviks took power, and then the Russian Civil War occurred. But it seems often the case that when revolutions occur, more moderate forces attempt to take the reins, and then extremist forces kind of take over. And the game certainly represents, if not in fact, at the very least, sort of that mentality of, people trying to protest nonviolently, but then also sort of a conflict between some of the characters who are more interested in violence versus characters that are more interested in sort of peaceful protests. So it's an interesting look at a conflict that I don't think enough Americans know enough about. There's a lot of great work out there. I think when we think of the Iranian Revolution, we think of the hostage crisis, but that was really... things had been coming to a head for quite a while before then, and the hostage crisis was more directed at the Shah hiding in the United States, being treated for cancer, than it was really directed against the revolution itself. That had already occurred, and the Shah had already been deposed, and he had already fled the country by that point in time. So Again, with the caveat that I haven't completed the game and I'm still kind of trying to gauge where the game developer is coming from. This is a really interesting game. It's called Revolution 1979 Black Friday. Puts you in the shoes of a journalist in Iran during the Iranian Revolution, and it seems pretty interesting. Again, it's not a heavily interactive game. It's more of a kind of almost like a text-based adventure with a lot of very well done graphics in between. But all in all, it's an interesting game, an interesting experience. And the more games we see like this that focus on topics that a lot of Americans and Westerners don't know a ton about, that also provide really good history, with the caveat that I don't know if the end product is really good history, but it seems like it is so far. I think the better off we are, because again, we don't get enough of these kind of stories, enough of these kind of games that are created in sort of Western games journalism. So it's neat to see this sort of indie studio coming out and producing this game. Additionally, the game apparently, and I just saw this, there was a Washington Post article actually about it, that says the game was kind of put together from like 40 plus different first-hand accounts of the revolution. So that kind of adds some credence to it, almost sort of like a, almost like a, Hearts of Valor? I can't even remember the name of the World War I game. Valiant Hearts, that was it. Valiant Hearts game, where it kind of was based largely on different letters and experiences of soldiers during the First World War. Well, it seems to be what they're trying here with 1979 Revolution, where they've kind of pieced together 40 different stories of different people who experienced the Iranian Revolution. I would imagine from different perspectives, but it's hard to say at this point. Anyway, guys, this is kind of a shorty for me. A lot of my videos tend to be a little bit longer, but let me know what you think about it. Let me know if you think this kind of a game is interesting. I don't want to play the whole game out. I hate to do that kind of a thing. Sometimes I do Let's Plays, but a lot of times when my Let's Plays are out there, I try and play games that are more kind of multifaceted, where, playing once through, it's really all player decision. But in a game like this, where it's heavily focused on player decision, but they might only have 4 choices. It's not like, do I move the unit to any one of 40 hexes on a map? It's more, do I choose one of 4 options? I don't really want to play through a whole game like that, because I don't want to take away from the story or the experience, or prevent you from being able to, experience it on your own. My intent is not to be, let's just watch my video and don't play the game. Most of my games, you don't have to worry about this, but for a game like this, you kind of would. So I don't think I'll play the whole game out, but I mean, you've got, 13 minutes of footage here that you've seen. You've had me talking about it. There's a lot of news media out there about it. I think it's an interesting game. So far, it seems worth picking up. If my perception of it changes as I go on, I'll probably release a follow-on video and just let you guys know. But so far, it's a really cool project, a really cool game, in an interesting, just sort of different sort of way. It's not a strategy game or a war game. It's a story game, and I think we could use more of these kind of games with more different varied historical topics. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comment description below. If you liked this video, if you didn't like this video, if you think I'm off base with what I've said for the game so far, just let me know. I'm really interested to hear. I'm also thinking about making a short video about Robert Gates's memoir, which came out, I want to say a year or 2 ago. It could have been a little longer than that. Robert Gates, who was the Secretary of Defense for the United States that replaced Rumsfeld under Bush in 2008. Was it 2008 or was it 2006? And then he stayed on for President Obama's first 2 years as well. So a really interesting book. I find a lot of it fascinating. Some of the discussions between him and Bush and him and Obama, and sort of the relationship between the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State, between him and Condoleezza Rice, between him and Hillary Clinton, and some of the different issues that were going on there. It's a fascinating book. And for someone who's widely considered one of the better Secretaries of Defenses in the last 30 or 40 years. So really interesting. I think I might make a video of it. I know I don't do a ton of book reviews, but I did do one on Ghost Fleet, so I might do that on Gates's memoir when I finish it. I'm only about halfway through. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think again. Let me know what you think about the idea of maybe doing a few more book reviews. And yeah, with that, I'm going to stop rambling and hope that you enjoyed the video. But until next time, guys, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and until next time, Ooh, I'm kind of tripping over my words right there, but until next time, guys, thanks for watching, and I'm out.
Never seen anything